Hi and welcome to another Dev Bootstrap screencast. In this screencast we're going to go through the Freqtrade trading bot, which is an open source platform for trading cryptocurrencies using any kind of algorithmic trading strategy that you like. It's an excellent platform, it's really mature, really stable, and I recommend trying it out. Now, one thing just to bear in mind, of course, is this video is not really about financial advice, so you should try this software out at your own risk. Now, without further ado, let's go through what we're going to cover in this screencast. So briefly, what we're going to cover in this screencast is a quick demo of the Freqtrade trading platform. So we're going to install the Freqtrade software using Docker. As you probably know already, I'm a big fan of Docker, and one of the main reasons is because you can just try out any software from any platform and spin that up really quickly just by downloading and running the container. And Freqtrade comes with a fully implemented stable Docker container, which we'll pull down in a second, and we'll run it for this demo. Once the Docker container is downloaded and available, then we can start to set up our bot. So we're going to create a new user data folder, which you'll see in a second, and then we'll configure the bot inside our folder there. We're then going to create a naive strategy. You could think of this as like a sort of a hello world strategy, just something to get started and just try out the bot. So once we get that strategy built, which is easy as well, easy to do, and we'll see this in the video. We can run that in a sandbox mode. Now, sandbox mode is basically a mode where it connects to real live trading data, but it uses paper money, fake money, in other words. This is great just to make sure that the strategy is bug-free, and also to make sure that you've got your configuration set up and your bot is running as expected. Next, we're going to download historical datasets for the open, high, low, close, and volume data. And when we download that historical data, we're then going to backtest our naive strategy against that historical data. And if you're familiar with crypto trading or any kind of trading with automated systems such as this, backtesting is an integral and a very important part of your testing and trading strategy. You want to make sure that the strategy that you've put together does perform well against historical data. Now, one of the other things you can do with Freqtrade from the back-tested data is, and from the results that you get from testing the data and the strategy, is you can plot the trades against the indicators and the candles on a graph. And again, this is all provided in Freqtrade, so it's just a simple one-line command to be able to do that. And you can then look at the buy signals, you can see the sell signals, you can see when the bot actually bought and when it actually sold, and we'll run through that in a little bit once we get to that point in this screencast. Once we've finished that, then we're going to optimize our strategy using something called Hyperopt. Now, Hyperopt is something that comes with the Freqtrade platform. It is a module that uses machine learning to basically run through all the different parameters of your strategy and find the optimal strategy or the optimal settings of all the different parameters in your strategy that yields the best result for what you're looking for. And when I say for what you're looking for, it's not necessarily always going to be the highest profit, as we'll see in a second. It's going to be perhaps something that has a good balance between profit and risk. And the cool thing is that the Hyperopt module provides a way to measure the your portfolio profit to risk ratio, and it can use that to basically give you the optimal strategy. We're going to dig into that when we get to that section of this screencast. Once the Hyperopt optimization code has finished, we can then use the output from that to update our naive strategy. And what I tend to do is I tend to keep the naive strategy as it is, and I copy that and create a new strategy called optimized strategy. And in that optimized strategy, I will copy the output from the Hyperopt module into my new strategy. Then we repeat the process again, in the sense that we then can now run the updated strategy in the sandbox mode. Again, this is just to make sure of the same things that we did previously, which is that we haven't introduced any bugs, that the bot starts up and it picks up the new strategy that we expect, and it starts to trade based on the updated strategy that we have set in that optimized strategy, right? And the other thing, the final part of this will be to spin up the Freqtrade Web application. It's a really great application that allows you to view the trades live as they're taking place, and that will work in both sandbox mode and live mode. And that's where I'll stop this screencast. I won't go into a live trading environment in this screencast. This is really just for educational purposes only, as I mentioned, and something that I recommend that you try out using following this step-by-step guide that we're going through today, as I believe that it's a great way to learn about different trading strategies, different signals, different technical analysis, and algorithmic trading in general. And it's a nice, comfortable way of doing it, because everything we're doing today is going to be with paper money. So it's really a great learning experience. So without further ado, let's move over to the Freqtrade documentation, which is what we're going to be following. And the documentation is pretty good. It covers all of the parts that we want to cover in our bot. And so the first thing that we're going to do is go and jump straight into the quick start with Docker. And the cool thing, as I mentioned before, is that Docker is something that can just be installed on any platform, Mac, Windows, and Linux, and then you can install any other platform on the through the Docker runtime through Docker containers. So if you're not familiar with Docker, you might want to read up on that a little bit. But the purpose of this screencast today is really just a follow along screencast. So my strategy here is to really try to make it so easy so that you can just follow along with what I'm doing, and also check out the repo in the Dev Bootstrap repository. So we're going to be following this instruction here. I'm going to be using a Mac. And so let's go ahead and move over to our terminal and start that process. Now, so the first thing that they ask us to do is create a directory. So we're going to make a directory, and we're just going to follow the instructions as per the site. So we're going to create that directory, and we're going to cd into it. And then they say to download via curl the Docker Compose file from the stable branch of the Freqtrade repository. So this is a way to download a single file from a GitHub repository should you need it. So now we can see in our folder we've got the Docker Compose file here. Now we can run Docker Compose pull. So that's Docker Compose pull, and this will pull down the image that's referenced inside of the Docker Compose file. So this would be a good time to just quickly jump into our text editor and take a look at the Docker Compose file that we downloaded. Now I'm not going to go too much into Docker during this screencast, because the main thing is to focus on Freqtrade and setting up a strategy, as we just discussed. But the main thing here is that it's a very simple Docker Compose file. And the thing is, I just pulled down this image here. So you can take a look at that image on Docker Hub. That's where we pulled it down from. So let's go back over here and let's clear this out. And what we're going to do now is follow the instructions to create the user directory structure. Now, one thing is that when you install Freqtrade without Docker, you can run Freqtrade commands directly like this. Freqtrade and then the command like that, and then whatever else you need to do. But because we're running this through Docker Compose, we need to run it as follows. So we need to run Docker Compose, and then we need to run the run command and then the --rm command to remove the container. And once we've done that, we can type our command Freqtrade create user directory --user dir and then user data. This is basically, this part here is saying Docker, please spin up the container in the Docker Compose file that's located in the current directory, which is the one I just showed you. And then when that container is spun up, run this command inside of that container. Now, I'm going to run this command, but I'm also going to give you a quick heads up that I have also aliased this command on my machine. This part here, this command here. And I've aliased it for a good reason, so I don't have to type docker-compose run --rm every single time I want to run a command like Freqtrade something or other in my container. So I've aliased that command dcr. So we'll see that being used a lot. Now, before I run the next command, which is a command for creating a config, I just want to flip over to the editor again, and you can see now that we have this new folder here, user_data. This is essentially, you could think of this folder as like a project folder for your trading bot, right? And as you can see, it creates these folders here. So it's a scaffold for a new bot in Freqtrade. And we're going to dive into all of these folders here, but you can see that they make pretty much sense. I think most of those folders, backtesting results, the Hyperopt results, the logs will be in the logs file, and we put strategies in the strategies file, and you can see it comes up, it gives us a free simple strategy, which we'll dig into in a second. But let's go back here and let's run the final command to set up our bot. And remember I'm going to use the alias dcr. Now, if you want to know how to alias Docker Compose run --rm like this, you can check out our README. So dcr is going to spin up a Docker Compose or Docker container, and then I'm going to run Freqtrade like that. Create new. It should be new config --config user data config.json. All right. So what that's going to do is spin up the container and then run the Freqtrade new -config command. And now we enter into this wizard, and we can start to basically configure our bot through this wizard, and it will save the configuration into the folder user_data and into the config.json file. So I'm going to run through this wizard, and then later on we can actually open up the config file and take a look, and we can edit the config file in there as well. So we're going to run dry run trades. My stake currency is going to be USDT. My stake amount is going to be unlimited, and I'll explain that in a second, so bear with me on that one. Max open trades, we'll just go for 10, not 310, but 10. All right. Desired time frame, I'm going to go for 15-minute candles. Again, this is a strategy decision, and that's something for you to learn and to try out. This screencast is mostly focused on getting the bot running. Display currency for reporting, US dollar, that's fine for me, right? Binance, yes, I'm going to use Binance. Am I going to enable Telegram? Yes. And the Telegram token, I can put that in. Yep, I think I have that to hand somewhere. Yep. So if you have a Telegram token, you can drop that in there, and a chat ID. All right, and then you can just basically hit enter, and you're done. So setting up Telegram and so on is outside of the scope of this of the screencast. So if you don't have a Telegram token, just leave that blank. Okay, so now we're done with the configuration. We can take a look at it, and that will be right here. So as you can see, okay, I entered unlimited. That should be in a quotes, so that's fine. I can just fix that right there. And the main thing to really look at here is the make sure that we got the right exchange, make sure that we've got the right pair list and so on. Now we're going to be changing this actually in a second. The stake currency and stake amount. Now, so why did I put unlimited here? The reason is because when we're going to start the bot in Sandbox mode, it will give us 1,000 credits, and because the currency is USDT, that will basically be the equivalent of 1,000 USDT, and we can basically tell the bot to use to basically divide the amount of total credit that we have among all the trades that we want to make. So actually I did make one mistake here. We need to add dry run wallet 1,000 in here, which gives us 1,000 USDT. So basically, just to say this again, the unlimited stake amount means that it will divide $1,000 across each of the 10 trades at a sort of balance ratio of 0.99. In other words, it's going to put a little bit under $100 per trade into the trade basically, and so that there's enough for fees to be paid. Right. So that's and so the config is done. Now that the config is already set up, we can actually go on to creating a strategy. So the way I'm going to create a strategy is to go into the strategies folder here. I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call this a BBRSI naive strategy. Why BBRSI is because this naive strategy is going to use Bollinger Bands and RSI, Relative Strength Index, for the signals. And so I've got this open empty strategy file, and I'm going to copy the simple strategy over to that. That's what I recommend you guys do as well when you're starting out with this. So once you've got that file, now you can basically edit this as you wish, apart from where it says do not remove. So we're going to keep the libraries, but I'm going to rename the strategy to BBRSI, naive strategy, like that, so we know that's the strategy that we are looking at. And then we got these notes here that we can use, and we can just leave that. Now, what I'm going to do is go through some of these configurations and then tell you what I recommend, or what I'm going to do for this naive strategy. So minimum ROI, I think I'll just keep it like that as it is now. But basically, what this does, and this is something which we're going to configure when we look at the Hyperopt, it basically says when to sell your position based on your return on investment. And the key here is number of minutes. So what this is saying is, if after 60 minutes we've got a profit of 1%, then sell the position. If after 30 minutes we got a profit of 2%, then sell. If we got after like 0 minutes we got 4%, then sell. So in other words, let's do a quick scenario here. Imagine you put a trade on and you get lucky and the price increases up to 4%, right? Then it will sell. It will just sell as soon as it does that. However, if it goes down and it does different things, but then after 30 minutes you've got a 2% return on investment, then it will sell. Okay, so that's what the ROI does. And actually I've noticed, at least when I've been using this, and I haven't been using this long, by the way, but I've noticed that it often will exit on the ROI and not on the sell trigger that we set up later. But that was just for this naive strategy. We'll see what happens later. And you can of course try this out yourself. Stop loss behaves in the same way as any other stop loss. This is basically saying 10% stop loss. So if it hits that, then it will sell, right? But you don't want that to happen, obviously. When I've optimized this, we'll see it later. The stop loss can be much higher than this to cater for swings in the trades. Now I'm going to just skip down through these and go straight down to populate indicators. Because this is what we want to use for our strategy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste in here what I've got for the naive strategy. And you can take a look at these other indicators here. But what I recommend you do is clear all of that out. So just get rid of all of that. You can get rid of the comments as well to keep it clean. And this is what we're going to use for our naive strategy. These are the indicators we're going to use. So we're using this library, the TA library, which is imported at the top. Let's just scroll quickly to the top. You can see here it's the TA-lib, technical analysis library that's being brought in there. It's a Python library, pretty well established. And what we do really here is we just say, run the data frame, which contains the candles data, run that through this RSI function, and add that as a new key in the data frame, right? So in other words, it's going to take the data and give us the RSI on this data frame here. And then the same with the Bollinger Bands. Bollinger Bands uses a different library, the qtpylib, and it uses the Bollinger Bands function. And the main thing to note is the standard deviation. So if you're familiar with Bollinger Bands, these are bands which sit around the price chart and the average price. And so we put 1 or 2 or 3 standard deviations either side of that, which is basically an indication of volatility of the price, right? So we can then plot the upper, mid, and lower Bollinger Bands into our data frame from the calculations and return that data frame. So these are the 2 indicators that we're going to use. And so what we want to do with these indicators is then populate buy trends and populate sell trends. These are the 2 functions here. Essentially, these 2 functions tell the bot when to buy and when to sell based on signals. So for the buy trend and the sell trend, I'm going to just copy and paste in exactly what I've got for our current naive strategy. So I'm going to put that in here. And firstly, the buy trend. So in this strategy, and again, this video is not really about how to design trading strategies and so on. This is about using this bot, but that's why I'm trying to keep the strategy as simple but as realistic as possible. So here we got this data frame for RSI. So we're saying whenever the RSI, the relative strength index, is greater than 25, right, and the close of the candle in the time frame that we're using, which is 15-minute candles, when that close is less than the lower Bollinger Band, when those 2 things are true, then we have a buy signal, right? And so basically, RSI is relative strength index. So you want to have a number that is, the higher the stronger the sell signal in general, right? And if you've got an RSI that is falling and is tending towards 0, then that generally indicates a very strong sell signal, right? So this is not perfect. Nothing's perfect, and this is naive. So really, this is just a basic get your feet wet strategy to buy. So that's the buy trend. And the sell trend basically says, okay, well, sell when the RSI is greater than 70, and when the close, again, the closing candle is higher than the mid band, the Bollinger Band mid band, which is essentially the average price of the asset that you're trading. And that would be a sell signal. So really what we're saying here is buy when the price is low and sell when the price goes back up to the mid band. So that's basically it. So what we can do then is save that strategy, and then we can, as a sanity check, we can run that in a sandbox. So how do we do that? Well, first thing to do is to go into your Docker Compose file and check this command down the bottom and have a look at that. That's what we're going to run. So we're going to spin up a Docker container, and this time, instead of just running the command, running a one-off command like we've been doing to set up the bot, we're going to start the bot trading. So we need this to run as a daemon so that it keeps running continuously. We don't want it to just run and then stop. So this is why we need to use Docker Compose up. And when we run Docker Compose up, we will run the command that is defined here, which is essentially the trade command. And we got these parameters, and we say, okay, well, put the log file in here. That's fine. We can take a look at that later. The database is this one here, which is where Freqtrade will save all of the trades that it makes. It goes into this SQLite database. Use this configuration, which is the configuration we just set up earlier, and use this strategy. And we, of course, want to use the BBRSI naive strategy. All right, and that's it. So now this should hopefully, fingers crossed, should work. So let's clear this out. And what we can do is we can run Docker Compose up -d. -d means just started as a daemon. And then we can run Docker Compose logs -f, which means follow the logs. And you can see that we got a fatal exception. And the reason is because we didn't update our pairs. And it's because you can see here state currency USDT is not compatible with the pair whitelist. That's because we didn't update it. So when you spin up the bot, or when you scaffold the bot and it creates this config, it gives you these whitelisted pairs by definition. And this is because we chose Binance, I think, because you can see here it's blacklisted a lot of BNB pairs. Not sure why it does that, like blacklists those BNB pairs there, but it doesn't matter. You choose yourself what pairs you want to trade. So I'm going to just replace this with the pairs that I want to look at for this purpose of this demo. As you can see here, they're all USDT pairs. So let's try and run the bot again. So we can also use Docker Compose, by the way, Docker Compose PS to see if it's running, and it is actually restarting. So let's run the logs and see if it has restarted. So logs -f. And we've got an invalid token for Telegram. Okay, so what I can do is I'll just disable Telegram, and we can start the bot again. Now, by the way, this might be a good time to just mention that I've also aliased another command, which is the Docker Compose command, and I've aliased that to DC. So if I run DC up -d, that will actually run Docker Compose up, and DC logs -f will run the logs. So now let's have a look. So remember, I've just disabled Telegram, so that's got rid of that error. And the other error that we got was related to the pairs not being correct. Right. So we've got the bot is running. The bot is running right now, and it looks like, yeah, you can see here it's using Binance here. It's picked up the USDT unlimited there, the minimum IRI, the stop loss as per our strategy, 15-minute candles, and it's using the BBRSI naive strategy. So that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Right, cool. So now, what will happen is in this feed here, in this log feed, we will see when the bot makes trades, when it buys or sells trades, and of course we won't see anything happening because this is now using live data but with paper money. We won't see any trades actually happening unless we actually hit hit the buy signal, and that might not be the case right now, because maybe all the pairs that we've chosen are performing quite well. Well, we can leave the bot running up here in this terminal window at the top, and we can go ahead and go into Dev Bootstrap, and we can go into Freqtrade demo and use the data. Okay, so we got our directory there. So what we can do is we can leave this bot running up here. Maybe it will make a trade. If it doesn't, I have another strategy which will make a trade pretty quickly, which is something that will just basically trade when it's at a sort of medium price or something like that. But what we can do now is we can prepare our data for download. So the first thing that I want to do is in the data directory here, we've got data Binance, it's already been created. We can create a file called pairs. So let's go ahead and create pairs. And in this pairs file, we can basically tell Freqtrade which pairs we want to download for our backtesting. So we just put that into here, and then we can head over back to our terminal window, and we can run the Freqtrade download pairs or download data. So what I'm going to do is go DCR, which is our alias, and I'll just clear that out there. Freqtrade download dash data exchange Binance dash T 15 minutes, and that's going to download 15 minutes candle data for Binance for the pairs that are listed in that pairs JSON. So you can see here it's downloading the different pairs based on the JSON, and that completed, and we can take a look at that in the editor here. So all those pairs are downloaded. So if we open up one, you can see the pair data. So that's the open, sorry, that's the timestamp, and then that's the open, that's the high, that's the low, that's the close, and that's the volume, and then that is all the data for 1 month, I think, or 30 days at 15-minute intervals. So that's downloaded for all of those pairs. And then the cool thing is that now we can basically use that for backtesting. Now, if you want to check which data Freqtrade knows about, you can run Freqtrade list-data and put in exchange Binance, and it should tell you that it's got the 15-minute data for the pairs that we just requested, and that's what we get back. It says it found 13 pair time frame combinations. We've got all of those pairs. So we're only going to be testing 15-minute data at this point. So now let's run the back test. So to run a back test, fortunately, Freqtrade doesn't take too long to run back tests. So we run the usual DCR Freqtrade to spin up the container and run the Freqtrade command, and then we run back testing, and we specify the data directory that we want to use, which is user data Binance, and then we run this. We include this export trades. We include that flag here so that we can then use the trade data for plotting later. We can set the stake amount to 100. The reason to 100 USDT. The reason why we have to do that is because if you remember in our config, we've set the stake amount to unlimited. So the backtesting doesn't know exactly what to use. So we're going to use $100. And then the -S is our strategy, which is BBRSI, naive strategy, with an interval of 15 minutes. So that's the command that we can use. Remember, this is all in our README file, so you don't have to copy me typing here. You can just go ahead and run through the README as well. So we hit the enter command there, and it should pick up the data that we've downloaded, and then run that through our strategy, the BBRSI naive strategy, and spit out the results, which it's just done. So it's really fast, which is great. And we can now take a look at the results here, from the backtesting. So this is the backtesting report. And I'll run through this real quick here. You know, again, this is a tool which is really, really useful. You can use it to test your own strategies. What we can see here is the number, basically the pairs, the number of buys that the bot made, the average profit of each of those, the cumulative profit, the total profit in USDT of each of those pairs over the trading period, the total profit, the duration of each trade, so the duration that the trade was, the bot was in a trade with that pair, so it was in an algo USDT trade for 6 hours during the 40 trades that it made. Out of 40, it won 33 of them and lost 7, meaning that it was profitable on 33 and it lost money on 7 of those trades. So if you look at this, what you tend to want to look for here in this backtest is really a good win to lose ratio. So this isn't too bad, really. Mostly it's winning. You can see the sort of total profit over the testing period, which I believe is a month, is 11%, which isn't too bad, right? And then you can see the reasons why the bot exited, right? So, and as I mentioned earlier, you can see that most of the time it's exiting on the ROI configuration, not necessarily on the sell signal, although it's using the sell signal sometimes, but mostly it's exiting on ROI. Occasionally you can see it exited on the stop loss, which is a bit nasty, but then again, you know, the stop loss was only 10%, and there is quite a large amount of volatility with crypto, of course. So then this bit here, this last table here, just basically says to you at the end of the back testing period, these are the trades that were still open. And what happened, what the back testing does is it closes all of those trades out and includes those into the report up the top here. So it's just to let you know that otherwise, in a normal trading scenario, these would still be left open, right? And then you get this really useful metrics or summary metrics table, which gives you a really nice overview of how your strategy performs. So we can see here the dates. So we can see that the trading strategy was between the 5th of March and the 4th of April. So yes, it's pretty much 1 month of back testing, right? During that time period, we had a max of 10 trades open at any one time simultaneously, and that's of course from our config. We said to the bot, please use 10 trades. We made a total of 487 trades in the month, and at the beginning of the month we had $1,000, and at the end of the month we had 1,116 USDT. So it's doing okay. It made a profit of $116.08, which is 11%. An average of 16 or 17 trades per day. You can see the stake amount, $100. And then we got the best pair, IOTA, interestingly, amazingly 40% there almost. Yeah, and the worst one was link. So quite surprising results, but then again, that's the way, that's the benefit of doing this, because we very, very quickly here basically ran a backtest for a whole month, and we can see this is what would have happened if we had run our bot for the last month. Now let's run a plot of this data, right? So we can use the plotting feature of Freqtrade. So DCR to spin up a Docker container, and then Freqtrade plot data frame strategy, BBRSI naive strategy. And what we want to do is let's plot one of these pairs. Well, let's plot the best one, right? Let's plot the IOTA USDT pair, because that was quite interesting. So IOTA USDT, and we have to choose 15 minutes. We don't have any other candles to choose. So what that's going to do is it's going to take the exported trades data and plot a graph of that. Now, you see we got this error, which is a good thing to show you actually, because this could be a bit confusing. This is specifically for, I think, for Docker Compose users, although even if you're not using Docker Compose, you've got to do something slightly different to plot the graphs. The reason for this is because the plotly and the plotting part is in a different image. So all we have to do is go over to our Docker Compose file, and we have to comment out this image and uncomment this image here for develop plot, and just save that file. And then come back here and run the command again. And this time, when DCR, Docker Compose run, spins up the container, it's going to spin up that plotly container, which is going to contain the necessary plot libraries. So now you can see here it's stored the plot in this folder here. So I can grab that path here and just type open and drop that in. And there is, I missed the L, yeah, okay. And there it is. So what we have here is a chart that shows all of the buy signals and the sell signals, as well as when the bot actually entered a trade and exited a trade. Now it looks a bit cluttered right now, and the cool thing is we got controls over here where we can remove some of the clutter if we like. So maybe what we're interested in is actually when did the bot buy and sell. So we can remove the buy and sell signals because they are just the signals, and we want to leave the actual events where the bot bought. We can remove the Bollinger Bands as well, just to keep the price and the actual events of buying and selling. Moreover, we can actually zoom in. So we can zoom in by scrolling along the bottom here. I think we can should be able to. Yeah, it's a little bit. Another way of doing it actually is just use the zoom feature. Or even this zoom feature here. So let's say we want to zoom into the top here. We can, like, look at that area. You can see there was a lot going on here, a lot of volatility, but still the bot made a profit, right? I mean, it bought here, so that's the trade buy, and it sold here, that's the green sell, so that's the sell profit. Buy and sell profit, and so on and so forth. So, and you can see, what was the RSI at the time when it bought, and what was the volume. And, this just helps you to further develop your strategy, right? You can go back by clicking the auto scale button here, and you can see the full overview. You can add different data to it. You can compare data on hover by clicking this, and then when you go, you get a lot more data there about each event that's happened. So you can see the open, high, low, close data and what the bot was doing at the time of the trade. So this helps you to sort of to dive in a bit deeper into each of the trades. I'm guessing the IOTA performed very well because of this volatility over here, but it remains to be seen, and of course you have to sort of dig in and make your own decisions on that. So as mentioned, you can plot a chart on any of the results. So perhaps let's look at the worst trade, which is the link USDT, or sorry, the worst pair as well, which is link USDT, which lost us 20%. So we can look at that. If we scroll up and we go, all we have to do is just type the pair name in here and then just run enter, and it will generate that plot for us, and we can open that up. So again, it's the same thing, just wait for a few seconds for it to generate, and then type open, and open the plot, and that will open the plot here, like so, and there we go. So this is the worst performing pair, yeah, you can see if we get rid of the price, we get rid of a lot of the data here. You can see, lots of poor losses, but also lots of wins too, so you can see here lots of wins. Let's put the price back. Yeah, lost money there, must have been a stop loss. Yeah, that was the stop loss that was hit there, you can see. So yeah, it's very useful tools. Like I say, I'm not going to go into the strategies and whether or not it's a good strategy or not a good strategy. That's the point of this tool, is for you to just try out your own strategies. Which leads me nicely, I think, onto the next step of this process, which is to optimize the strategy. And the way to do this is we use the Hyperopt tool. And so the first step is to create a new Hyperopt. So we're going to run docker compose run using the alias DCR. We're going to run the Freqtrade command new Hyperopt. And we're going to pass in the Hyperopt flag. And we're going to say bb rsi Hyperopt. This is what we're going to call our Hyperopt file. Okay. Okay. Then we go over to our text editor, and let's maybe just clean this up a bit. So we'll close everything out, collapse that, and go into Hyperopts, and we can see the BBRSI Hyperopt class that was just created for us. And what we want to do is we want to basically define in here our space, our indicator space, and our buy trend and our sell indicators. So what I will do, just for brevity, is I will copy the BBRSI Hyperopt class, which I've already prepared. And this will just allow me to just run through what I'm doing here. So remember that this is based on the naive strategy, and what I want to do here is I want to say to the Hyperopt tool, I've got this strategy, can you tell me which combination of parameters should I use, and what should I set those parameters to for really giving me the best optimal output based on my risk to profit sort of appetite. In other words, if you have a bot that it gives you 300% profit, or no, that's ridiculous, 30% profit, but the volatility is huge, then that might not be appealing. So you might want to have a strategy which gives you less profit, maybe 10 or 15% profit, but with much tighter volatility and much less risk. And so this Hyperopt tool uses a tool to do that, which is basically using something called the Sharpe ratio, which is documented inside Freqtrade and is what we will pass into the parameter when we run this. And the Sharpe ratio basically helps us to minimize risk. But what I will explain now is the indicators that we're using inside of this bot, so that we can use these indicators. So, for example, in our strategy, and our naive strategy, we're just using two indicators, RSI and Bollinger Bands. And so what I want to know is, what is the best RSI value for buying? And what is the best RSI value for selling? And also, should I use RSI or not? And then for Bollinger Bands, what is the best Bollinger Band to buy at? And what is the best Bollinger Band to sell at? And should I use one standard deviation or two or three or four? So this is what I've done here, is I've populated various indicators that I want this Hyperopt tool to test. So that's why I've got an RSI buy parameter, an RSI sell parameter, and then I've got 4 calculated Bollinger Bands, each at different standard deviations. So standard deviation of 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I basically save these into the data frame, the lower, middle, and upper bands for 1, 2, 3, and 4 standard deviations. And these are the parameters that I'm asking the Hyperopt tool to use. Now, that's just populating them. Next is related to what we call the indicator space. And this is really saying to the Hyperopt tool, based on the indicators, please use this range of values. So for example, for the RSI, I want the Hyperopt to test a value of an RSI between 5 and 50. And I want it to test that throughout all the different permutations and combinations of the other parameters, such that it finds the optimal RSI value for buying and selling. And I want it to test within a range of 5 and 50. So that's what this is saying here. And here I'm saying test with the RSI enabled and with it disabled. In other words, try out the strategy using RSI as a signal and without using RSI as a signal. So we're asking this tool to say, do I even need this indicator or not? And then here we are using the buy trigger category, and we're saying which one of these Bollinger Bands should we use for buying. So these categories are defined later, but basically you can see that I'm saying, do we use the lower first band or the lower second band or the lower third or the lower fourth standard deviation band for buying? I mean, logically you'd think, let's say naively, you might think, well, why not just buy at the lowest Bollinger Band, because that's where the price is the cheapest, right? But of course that doesn't always work with the other parameters and the other things that are happening in the markets. It could be that when it's too low, like the fourth standard deviation, that could be when the markets are dropping fast and it's not a good time to buy or too risky to buy. And so that's why we use this Hyperopt tool, to see which band should we buy in at. And similarly, we want to also test for sales. So here, what we're doing actually here is still, we're working with the buy trend, because what we're doing here is we are now saying, okay, well, now start to run the tests. And so what we're doing here is we're saying, okay, if the during the testing the RSI enabled is set to true, because remember, this is going to do iterations of tests, right? Or they call it an epoch. So it's going to run multiple times different parameters each time. using machine learning techniques to optimize this. And it's saying here that if in this particular run we've got RSI enabled, then apply the conditions of buying when the RSI is greater than the current RSI value. In other words, the buy signal is a strong buy signal for the RSI. And then for the triggers, here we're saying, okay, if the buy trigger is enabled with the first standard deviation, then buy when the data frame close candle for the time frame of the candles being used is lower than the first standard deviation Bollinger Band. But if we are using the second standard deviation, then use the second standard deviation lower band, and so on. So this is basically saying, as we go through these iterations, sometimes it's going to say use the first standard deviation, see how that performs. Then it's going to say, and maybe in the next iteration, it's going to say use the third standard deviation, see how that performs, and so on. And sometimes it's going to have RSA enabled and sometimes not enabled. So you can see here that this can, it's going to take some time because it's going to try many different combinations of these settings, as I say, to find the optimal one. So that's how that is set up. And then for the sell indicator space, the sell indicator space is similar to the buy indicator space, where we're just saying to the Hyperopt tool, these are the ranges of parameters that we want to use for testing and for optimizing our strategy. So here I'm basically saying, okay, well, use an RSI value between 30 and 100. Okay, because remember, the higher the RSI, the higher the strength is for the price going up. So that might be an indicator that we are reaching a peak of buying, and we should and the price may start to change. So we may want to sell, and also we're asking whether or not we should use this RSI indicator at all. So try it with or without. And then the Bollinger Bands to test. So in this case, for the sell indicator, we're only asking it to test the first standard deviation Bollinger Bands. But should we sell at the lower or the middle or the upper? Which one should we use, right? That's what that is going to find out. And then when it runs the populate sell trend, it's the same thing as the buy approach, where it's like, okay, if we do have RSI enabled, then follow this approach, and if we have if we're testing the first standard deviation Bollinger Band, then sell when the close is higher than the first standard deviation lower band, and if we are using the mid band, then try the mid band, and then if we're using the upper band, then try the upper band. So again, it's going to have permutations and combinations of these different values to find the optimal value. So that's how we set up a Hyperopt strategy. There's a lot more in the README, in the comments here, in the documentation, but essentially just consider this as a way of taking a strategy and trying different values of your indicators in a range that you feel comfortable with testing, and running this over multiple epochs until you are finding an optimal strategy based on your appetite for risk. So how do we run this? Well, the way to run the Hyperopt is using the Hyperopt command. So we're going to run DCR Freqtrade Hyperopt BBRSI Hyperopt, and then Hyperopt loss is our formula or function for our appetite for loss, and we're going to use the sharp Hyperopt loss function, and the strategy is the BBRSI naive strategy that we want to test this against, and we're using 15-minute candles. So as you can imagine, there's so many different parameters that can change, and you might want to run your strategy against 5-minute candles or 1-minute candles, or you might want to actually introduce another indicator, or you might want to use a different Hyperopt loss strategy, which I noticed a typo here, I should put Hyperopt. And I can just actually go into the documentation and show you the Hyperopt documentation here very briefly. And the sharp Hyperopt loss are basically the class name of Hyperopt loss functions, which generate different results, and it's really based on your appetite for risk. And I think it's better. It's probably a good idea to dig into what these loss functions do. But you can read about it here in the documentation, and of course there's plenty of information about these different loss functions. So again, this tool is a learning tool, and it's about trying out these different things and seeing where you're comfortable with using. All right. So without further ado, let's run this. And by default, what this is going to do is it's going to run this through 100 epochs, as they say. Now, one thing is I've missed oops, sorry, I've typed in RSI here wrong. I'll try that again. So this is going to run through 100 epochs, which means it's going to run it, change some values, and then run it again, and change some values, and run it again. And it's going to keep doing that over 100 epochs. And each time it will use, as I said, machine learning to optimize the path that it uses to find the most optimal strategy. So that's why we can see here now that it's running epoch 13 of 100, and as it finds a better result, it will output that result. So as you can see, sometimes it doesn't output any result because it's done a test in a particular epoch with a particular set of parameters, and it's not outperformed any of the previous epochs. So the best epoch is always the latest one. So far, we've got the best is the 18th epoch. You can see there that it's run 874 trades with 612 wins. And 247 losses. So and it's pretty healthy profits of 246%. So that's pretty amazing. $257 there, you can see the duration there. But now it's found a few more better performing set of parameters. And one of the things that is important to realize is the objective here. The objective column here is interesting because, as you can see, as this number tends towards being more and more negative, it means that there's less and less risk, and that's using the sharp Hyperopt loss function that we were talking about earlier. So that's actually why you might see, in fact, no, we haven't seen it yet, but I've seen results where the profit for a better set of parameters is less, but the objective is better. In other words, the risk is better. And sometimes, like doing fewer trades is also sometimes better because of the we can see here that this was a lot of trades, but you can see fewer trades but a higher profit, and then here this one, number 59, is a few more trades but the profit's less. Right, but you can see the losses were a lot lower, and this number is even more negative than all of them. So this is the number that it's looking to optimize, is this objective number. Finally, the testing has completed, and you can see here that we ran it for 100 epochs, and it found the best match at the 59th epoch. It means that it continued to run for another 41 epochs, but it didn't find anything better after that. Now, the recommended approach is to run this for quite a few epochs. I've ran some for like 5,000 epochs, and it takes a lot longer, of course. But I tend to find better strategies that are discovered further down the epochs. Not necessarily, after thousands, but sometimes maybe after 800 or 900. But again, it depends on the strategy. For what I've been doing, I've found that it seems to find the optimal strategy around 800-900 epochs. But I let the thing run for 5,000 epochs just overnight. Now, here, what we've got with our naive strategy and the Hyperopt that we've set up, we can see that the best epoch, as I say, is 59, and it gives us this profit. And then after it's finished, the Hyperopt tool gives us the best result and the parameters that it used to get that result. And so it tells you what were the buy parameters to produce this result. And so we can see here that the buy trigger was the BB lower 1 SD. So that means that the buy trigger was to use the lower first standard deviation Bollinger Band, and that RSI was not enabled, right? So that's interesting. The cell hyperspace parameters are that the RSI was enabled, and the RSI value should be 93, so it's quite high, and that we should sell on the upper first standard deviation Bollinger Band. Okay, that's interesting. And then the other interesting part are the ROI and the stop loss. So we can copy all of these values over to our new optimized strategy in a minute. But you can see here the minimal ROI says that if the profit of your trade is like 32%, like within 0 minutes, or between 0 and 79 minutes, then sell. Well, yeah, I can kind of agree that 32% is not bad. If you've got about 10% 80 minutes, then sell. If you've got 3% at 109 minutes, then 3 or 4%, then sell. And then basically exit out at no profit or no loss, basically, at 236 minutes. But obviously after 236 minutes, if you're in a loss, then it will potentially trigger the stop loss, which is saying 28.5% of a stop loss. So if you're willing to watch trades drop that low, on your bot, then that's what you want to set your parameters to. So what we can do is we can copy and paste these parameters into a new strategy, okay? And this is going to be the BBRSI optimized strategy, right? Pi. Okay, and I'm gonna copy these in first like that, and then I'm going to copy the naive strategy, and I'm just going to copy and paste the entire thing. And I'm going to first of all do the ROI. So I just cut that out and I put that in here. So that's pretty much a copy and paste exercise. The stop loss is, I think, the same, just to copy and paste. So you can just say like that. And then the cell parameters is RSI enabled is true. So let's just cut that out here and go down to our cell trend. and we see RSI is true, that's fine, but we should be greater than 93 according to the Hyperopt, and we should be using the upper first standard deviation Bollinger Band. So in other words, the close should be greater than the upper band. So the upper band, and we want to use the first standard deviation. And so we don't actually, I don't think we have that data. So we need to calculate it, because you see here the populate indicators only includes the second standard deviation, and we want the first. So I'm going to copy this. Okay, and I'm going to create another variable here called first standard deviation. Maybe I'm going to change that there, and this is going to be first standard deviation. So change the TDS to 1, and then here I'm going to add 1 SD to this. Now we only need the upper band, right? So I'm not going to bother populating the mid or the lower, and that gives us this value here. So just to sanity check here, we're calculating the first standard deviation Bollinger Band, and we are setting the upper band to BB_upper band 1SD in our data frame, and then we're using it down here as our cell strategy because the Hyperopt told us to do so. Right, and then the by Hyperopt parameters, let's copy those and put those down in the by trends down here. So what do we have? We've got lower first standard deviation. Okay. So the lower first, that's the first. So we need this as well. We need lower. So lower, we call this lower band first. All right, cool. And then we use that, and RSI is not enabled, so all we have to do is delete that. So that's the by parameters done, right? We're going to use the lower first standard deviation. That's it. Okay. So so it looks like we don't use the second standard deviation at all. So we can actually get rid of that, and we're only using the first standard deviation, upper and lower. So upper band and lower band. So we populate the upper band and the lower band, and we populate the RSI because we use those parameters. And then for the by trend, we're only using the lower band first standard deviation for our by signal. We don't care about the RSI. But for the cell trend, we do care about the RSI. We want that to be greater than 93, and we want the close to be greater than the upper band first standard deviation. All right, so this is our optimized strategy, which is cool. But what we want to do for a sanity check is we want to backtest this against the same data that we backtested previously. So we can clear this out, and we can run DCR Freqtrade backtesting data dir. Sorry, data dir user data Binance, and then again we want to export trades if we want to populate them, and the stake amount is $100 USDT, and then we want to use the BBRSI optimized strategy with indicator, with an interval of 15 minutes. So let's run this back test. Now, the point of running this back test is to ensure that the strategy that we just put together performs as per the Hyperopt tells us, right? So I've typed something wrong here, possibly the strategy name. Let me just check this again. BBRSI optimize. Ah, yeah. It's because you need to change the class name, right? So that needs to be, because I've created a new file here. So optimized strategy, like that. Let's try that again. Because you don't have to, you don't have to create a new class. You can just edit your current strategy in place. But I like to create a different class so that I've got both strategies in my repository here. So, does this look like the results we were getting from the Hyperopt earlier? Well, it certainly looks good, and it looks better. It is better than the naive strategy, because you can see here, for example, the profit is 22%, which is pretty good, and you can see the losses is very low, only 10. A lot of draws. You can see again that ROI mostly it's exiting because of ROI, well, the forced sale was these ones that were left open at the end of the back testing. So literally everything was sold because of ROI. So the only trigger that was used was the buy trigger. The sell trigger was the ROI. Let's have a look at the the best pairs. So the best pair was basic attention token this time. Different token performed better, which is interesting. And of course, because we exited all the trades, because we exported the trade data, we can plot this data as well. So you can do that. So this compares quite nicely. I think, like, if we look at this, we've got almost 400 buys, 22% profit, $223 profit, and only 10 losses. Let's look at the Hyperopt results, which is further up here. This is what we got. 400 trades, win and draw. It's $250 profit, blah blah blah. It's almost the same. 397 trades. Go to scroll down here. It's pretty much the same. Very close. So that means that we haven't made any typos in our strategy, and we're good to go. So next up, I'm going to run the strategy in our Sandbox environment, and then we're going to look at that in our UI. Now, the whole time we actually have been running the naive strategy in this other window. So let's take a look at that actually. And it has, if you look here, it made a purchase. It's entered a trade, and you can see the trade ID 1, and it bought XMR USDT, and it put $99 into that trade, and that's it. It's still in that trade now. So, but that's fine. What I can do now is I can close this, and I can shut down the service. And what I want to do now is I want to start the service again, restart the service, but this time using our optimized strategy, and then look at that strategy, or look at the actual trades being executed live in the Freqtrade user interface. So the way to do that is to head over to our Docker Compose file again, and we want to change back to the Freqtrade stable. And then down here in the command, instead of using the naive strategy, we want to use the optimized strategy. Okay, and with those two changes, we can just go back and run dc up-d, which starts Docker Compose as a daemon. And if we look at dcps, remember that's Docker Compose ps, you can see that the Freqtrade command is up. So if we run dc logs-f to follow the logs, we can see the Freqtrade bot has started. And let's just make sure that it's running the optimized strategy. Yeah, you can see it just there If I just, yeah, you can see it's running the BBRSI optimized strategy. It's using the ROI that we just updated and the stop loss, 15-minute candles. It's using Binance, and it's started. So now one thing that's interesting that you might need to know about is, or is useful to know about, is it says here it found an open trade ID 1. That was the trade that was open previously in the previous session. And the reason why it picked that up is because it's stored that trade in the MySQL, not MySQL, SQLite, SQLite database. And so if you want to start completely fresh, which is what I want to do actually, you can just delete that database. So let's bring the service down again. And the database, just so you know, is in user data here. It's in trade SV3 SQLite. So what you can do is you can just remove that database. So user data trade, you just RM that database, just remove it, delete it. And then when you start the trading bots back up again, it's now going to start with a fresh database. It's going to create a new database, and there won't be any lingering trades. Now notice it already found a buy signal for the same pair, in fact, I think, and it has actually made that trade again. So that's interesting, but that's fine as well, really. So basically, it's made another trade for the same pair. Now let's take a look at the Freqtrade user interface, and I'll just show you how you can start that up and how you can run the Freqtrade UI in a browser. So the way to do that is as follows. This is using Docker, by the way. So again, it's easier to use Docker, I find, because you don't have to really install anything or worry about anything. So the first thing to do is you need to uncomment this, because what this will do is it will say it's going to forward localhost port 8080 to the containers port 8080. And then the other thing you need to do, because we're running this in Docker Compose, is in the config under API server, you need to change this to bind to 0000, like that. And you need to enable it. And you need a good username and password. I'll just call this dev bootstrap, and I'll call dev bootstrap like that. And the password can be password like so. So once you have the password set in here, you can go ahead and go and spin this down, or restart the Docker container. Actually, I had stopped it already. So you just restart it, and then you can head over to a browser and just type localhost 8080, and it will bring up the Freqtrade UI. And you can hit the trade button, and you can see the trade. You can see all the trades that the bot has entered into. So you can see the XMR USDT trade. If we scroll up, that is the trade that it entered into, XMR USDT. You can see that it entered in with a rate of it bought 0.39. So there it is on the UI here. You can see that it bought 0.39 with $99. The open rate when it bought was 250.53. It's currently 250.34. We're currently at a minus 0.275 profit. And you get the chart data here as well, which is pretty cool. You can kind of see here why the bot bought, because it's on a sale here. And so and it's most likely, well, not most likely, it's definitely crossed the Bollinger Band as defined by our strategy. Just to remind you, the buy trend was to buy when the closing candle in the 50-minute candle is lower than the lower band first standard deviation. So that's what's happened here. It's done that. It's done that, and and the bot has gone ahead and bought. And this UI is a bit it's an alpha UI, but it's got some useful features. It does work mostly. It needs some improvements, but over time I'm sure it will be. And you can click on auto refresh to get the trade data updated. And what you want is obviously lots of greens, and lots of good healthy trades showing up here in your bot. You get trade details here about each trade, when the stop loss, what the open rate, minimum rate, profit is, and everything. And you get information about bot status, the performance. At the moment there's no performance, but if you had already made trades, you would see that here. The trade, the bot balance. So as you can see here, we've got $901 of USDT, but we've got $98 of XMR, and so that means that we're losing money already. But that generally is what I've seen in terms of initially when the trade is opened, it will take a little bit of a dip. And then it should, if the bot has made the right strategy, or let's say you have made the right strategy decisions, it should start to climb up. But if it doesn't, then it will, you'll make a loss until it hits the stop loss. Or if it does climb back up, then it will exit at the ROI settings, or at your particular trigger. Okay, I've had the bot running for a few days now, and I just wanted to show you the Telegram user interface. Because the cool thing about the Freqtrade bot is that it integrates very cleanly and simply with Telegram. You just use the bot father in Telegram to create a new bot, and then you take the token and the chat ID and just add that to the config of your Freqtrade bot. And then you can communicate with your bot through Telegram. And so when you open up Telegram, you get these buttons you can check at the bottom here. So for example, if we look at the performance of the bots over the last few days, you can see that it's made a number of trades and closed out trades, all in profit. As you can see, it's ordered by the best performing trades, and you can see the percentage, the pair, and the number of trades that were made using that pair. So you can see there's quite a wide range of profit margins that the bot manages to achieve. And so you've got these different buttons here that you can use to check out what the current balance of the bot is, what your current status of the bot is, and you can just try these out yourself. And I think with that, I'll leave it for this particular screencast. And so just as an overview, what we saw in this screencast was the Freqtrade bot. We configured it using the configuration file here. We set that up using a wizard. We set the max open trades to 10, and we set the stake amount to unlimited with a wallet balance of 1,000. And that way, every time a trade was made, it would split $1,000 evenly across each trade. These settings we didn't really look at, but we do have the exchange. We don't need the key and secret for Binance because it's not live, so it just takes the prices but does paper-based dry run trading against these whitelisted pairs. We also configured the Telegram bots, which here I've got it set to false, but what you do is you set this to true and put your token in here. And the API server allows us to interact with the bots via a web UI. So you've got a choice when you run the bot to interact with it using Telegram or a web application. And then we went ahead and set up a naive strategy where we populated that with our desired ROI and our indicators and our buy signal and sell signal. We backtested that against 15-minute candles for these whitelisted pairs over a period of 1 month, and then we optimized it using this Hyperopt strategy where we said, okay, well, do we use RSI or not, and which Bollinger Bands should we use to buy and sell. And once the Hyperopt had run through 100 epochs, we took the results of that Hyperopt and created a new strategy called the BBRSI optimized strategy, and we copied in the values from the Hyperopt, so the ROI, the stop loss, and the indicators that we need to use, as well as the buy trend and sell trend. We backtested the optimized strategy to make sure that we get similar results as expected, and then we started up the optimized strategy in a dry run environment and left that running for a few days, and we can see the results as shown in Telegram. So that's the end of this screencast. I hope you enjoyed this, and please do share and please like and subscribe to the channel. I generally will be posting screencasts on software development for blockchain projects, and basically to be a full stack blockchain developer. So if you're interested in that kind of screencast, then and learning to be a software engineer, then do subscribe. This was a little bit of a deviation from my usual screencast, but the thing is, I tend to just screencast the things that I'm doing, and trading and building trading bots is one of the things that I am working on quite a lot at the moment. So that's why I thought I'd look into Freqtrade and see what it does, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you find this useful. Please do check out the repository. There's a full readme of all the steps I took, so it should be a pretty straightforward follow along for anyone who wants to try this out. And let me know in the comments what you think and and how your strategies went and what strategies you use. I'm very interested to learn and share knowledge with and experiences with anyone who wants to try out trading and using crypto bots like Freqtrade for automating their trading strategies. So thank you again, everyone, and I really hope that you have a great day ahead, and good luck with your trading, and good luck with setting up your bots. Thank you, and have a good evening.